And welcome to Business 360. I'm Shireen Bhan. The headlines that we're tracking for you this evening. The Sensex and the Nifty end a range-bound session with marginal gains. The rupee weakens by 23 paise against the dollar after briefly hitting its highest level in 2025 so far. China's foreign minister calls on nations to stand up to President Trump's tariff, says compromise will make the bully want to push his luck more. Reports suggest the Trump administration could provide some relief for US automakers from the impact of tariffs. Europe's largest lender, HSBC, beats estimates with quarterly profits of over $9 billion. Deutsche Bank also beats estimates with profits topping $2 billion. The Deputy CEO at IndusInd Bank, Arun Khurana, steps down, takes responsibility for the lapses in derivatives accounting, which led to a loss of nearly 2,000 crore rupees. CNBC-TV18 reported last week the bank is likely to see the exit of senior leaders. Market regulator SEBI is looking at whether investors were shortchanged due to alleged wrongful disclosures by Ola Electric. Ola announced sales of 25,000 units in February, but the government portal showed only 8,600 registrations. Ola called it a straightforward case of temporary registration backlog. Pakistan violates ceasefire for the fifth straight day, says the Indian Army. Counter-terror operations underway across the valley as the hunt for Pahalgam attack suspects continue. India shuts down 48 tourist destinations in J&K to tighten security. The Supreme Court asks what is wrong if the government uses a spyware in the Pegasus case. Asserts national security cannot be compromised. The apex court agrees to examine if private citizens were hacked and if the final findings of a court-appointed expert committee should be disclosed.
President Trump is trying to break us so that America can own us. That will never, ever happen.
Canada's Liberal Party, led by Mark Carney, secures a historic election victory. The former central bank governor calls for unity in the face of threats by US President Donald Trump. Let's go straight to the day's market action. The Lal Street closing the day flat. It was a range-bound session today, but the Nifty did hold on to the 24,300 mark. Reliance continued to be the big contributor to the Nifty's upside for the second day in a row. Reliance added a market cap of 1.5 lakh crore rupees in two sessions, posting its biggest two-day gain in 4 years. The Nifty Bank ended in the red, while mid-caps outperformed the blue chips. Prashant is standing by with the trading action. Prashant, closing in the green for our markets broadly. What are the cues you're picking up on?
Not a bad day. The market, of course, closing absolutely flat. But we've had very strong days. Monday, for example, which is yesterday, it was a complete reversal of Friday's sell-off. And this morning, we woke up to flatter Wall Street cues as well. So neither here nor there. Market breadth overall, if you look at the advance decline ratio, pretty mixed as well. Actually, almost on an even keel. Nifty Bank will come up on your screen. Again, very, very strong performance recently. Mid-cap and small-cap indices up on your screen as well. I'll start with what was up on the Nifty first. Tech Mahindra, Reliance Industries has woken up back to about 1,400 plus. HCL Tech, Tata Communications were some of the other large Nifty names which did well. On the downside, Sun Pharma, ONGC and Dr. Reddy's were stocks which lost out. Defense was the space which really charged ahead. The Nifty Defense Index ending 5% plus higher. And just look at the number of stocks which did well, right? A Nifty name out of this pack, BEL, really top of the board. Mazgaon Dog, Garden Reach Shipbuilders, Cochin Shipyard, the shipbuilders doing very well. HAL, related to Air Force and planes, data patterns, Paras Defense, Bharat Dynamics, BEML, even something like a Shipping Corporation of India charging up. PNB Housing saw a breakout, strong move today. Whirlpool, Indian Cements and TBO Tech, which has been completely bombed out, saw some volume-led activity. On the downside, Tata Technologies was the big volume-led loser, 6% lost on it. The erstwhile Adani Wilmar stock was down. Go Digit, PCBL and Vadilal also saw some momentum getting out. Overall, not a bad day after the kind of very strong run that we've had. Back to you.
All right, Prashant, many thanks for joining us. China, meanwhile, has called on nations to stand up to President Trump's tariffs. Speaking at a BRICS meeting in Brazil, China's Foreign Minister Wang Yi called the US leader a bully who will only be emboldened further by appeasement and compromise. Now, the remarks come even after US Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent suggested that Washington could ban certain exports to China to gain leverage. Remember, Beijing has repeatedly warned other governments against striking deals with the US at the expense of China. And the Trump administration could provide some relief for U.S. automakers from the impact of the tariffs. According to a report by the Wall Street Journal, President Trump may prevent duties on foreign-made cars from stacking on top of other tariffs that he's already imposed. A White House official also said that some levies on foreign parts used to manufacture cars in the U.S. may be eased. The move will be retroactive, meaning automakers could be reimbursed for such tariffs that have already been paid. Now, this has been a big pain point as far as U.S. automakers are concerned. They have, of course, been petitioning the Trump administration to provide relief on tariffs. In the commodities market, global crude oil prices easing as investors lowered their demand growth expectations due to the lack of clarity and visibility amidst this tariff war. Gold prices, meanwhile, also eased from record lows as the U.S. dollar index strengthened. In the money market, the rupee has seen a volatile session. It opened higher, even hit its highest intraday level seen in 2025 so far by falling below the 85 mark against the dollar. However, it weakened in late trade by 23 paise. Bond prices rallied and the yield dropped by almost 1% after the RBI announced it will buy government securities worth 1.25 lakh crore rupees through open market operations. And staying with the RBI, the Monetary Policy Committee voted only on the rate decision in April and February policies and not on the stance. Saugata Bhattacharya, member of the MPC, revealed this to CNBC-TV18. The RBI governor has the right to put any issue to vote at the committee's meetings. The MPC, under former Governor Shaktikanta Das, voted on both the rate decision as well as the stance. But under the former Governor Urjit Patel, the MPC did not vote on the policy stance and votes were cast only on the rate decision. And we seem now to be back to that era.
There is no mention of a vote for a stance. There is no mention of a stance. There is that phrase that the chairman of the MPC, which is the governor, the RBI governor, has the right to put in. I'm just paraphrasing. I don't remember the exact wording of the act. That the chairman of the MPC has the right to pull in anything that he or she might deem important at that point in time.
So a vote now only on the rate, not on the stance. CNBC-TV18's Newsbreak has confirmed IndusInd Bank's Deputy CEO and ED, Arun Khurana, has resigned with immediate effect. Now, this comes only weeks after the private lender disclosed accounting lapses in its derivatives portfolio. Remember, Khurana headed the global markets division of the bank, which included the derivatives portfolio. Now, CNBC-TV18 had reported just last week that the bank was likely to see the exit of senior leaders. Rithu's here with more details. Rithu, this was expected, at least that is what you had reported. Arun Khurana is out. What can we expect from here now for IndusInd Bank?
Thanks for that. In what is clearly a fallout of the accounting discrepancies in IndusInd Bank's derivatives portfolio, Deputy CEO Arun Khurana has resigned with immediate effect as of yesterday. As we'd reported a couple of weeks ago, this was likely because Khurana was overseeing the Treasury Front Office, which is the division responsible for the derivatives portfolio, where incorrect accounting had led to a near 2,000 crore rupee hit on the bank's P&L. In his resignation letter as well, Arun Khurana has cited the recent unfortunate developments linked to the discrepancies and this P&L hit as the key reason for his decision. Now, this resignation comes just a day after the bank disclosed that an independent investigation had identified the key individuals who were responsible, and the bank had stated that the board will determine changes and realign senior management responsibilities based on the report's findings. Now, we understand that this independent investigation was conducted by Grant Thornton, which has pegged the adverse financial impact at about 1960 crore rupees, which is very close to the 1979 crore rupee hit, which was determined by external auditor PwC earlier. The bank will now account for this loss in its fourth quarter earnings. Meanwhile, the Reserve Bank of India has already shortened CEO Sumant Katpalia's tenure to March next year, and as we had reported, asked the board to submit the potential CEO candidate names by October. So the accounting fallout is triggering top-level exits, and this may not be the last one.
Ritu, many thanks for joining us. Aether Energy's IPO subscribed 27% on day 2 of the public bidding. The retail investor segment continues to be the largest subscription segment on day 2. The segment is now fully subscribed. Non-institutional investors subscribed to 26%, while qualified institutional buyers have not subscribed to the public issue as of yet. Remember, the company plans to raise over 2,900 crore rupees via this IPO. Well, another setback for Gensol Engineering. The Delhi High Court has appointed a receiver to take charge of the 95 EVs leased to Blue Smart by Climb Finance. The receiver will now be responsible for maintaining the vehicles. However, the court said the appointed receiver is not allowed to move the vehicles where they are parked. This came after Climb Finance told the High Court that it had not received lease payments since March of 2025. SEBI has barred Gensol's promoters from the market over allegations of misuse of funds. And the regulator SEBI, we understand, is looking at whether investors were shortchanged due to alleged wrongful disclosures by Ola Electric. Ola announced sales of 25,000 units in February, but the government portal showed only 8,600 registrations. Yash is here with more. Yash, what exactly is SEBI likely to take cognizance of?
Well, as you rightly pointed out, market regulator SEBI at this point of time, what we understand from sources, is looking at the veracity of disclosures made by Ola Electric. SEBI action has come after it received certain complaints from investors of Ola Electric with respect to an alleged wrongful disclosure made by the company on the exchanges. What is that alleged wrongful disclosure? Well, on February 28th, as you rightly pointed out, Ola had announced sales of 25,000 units for the month of February 2025 as against government's portal Vahan, which showed only 8,600 units were actually registered. Market regulator SEBI, after, as I said, certain investor complaints, took cognizance of it, and right now is looking into the disclosure made by the company on the exchanges versus what really transpired in terms of actual sales. Ola, after, of course, this particular disclosure, also clarified, saying that this case of the alleged discrepancy in the sale of units was a straightforward case of temporary registration backlog. Market regulator SEBI is taking, acknowledgement of the stock price also on the day when the alleged wrongful disclosure was made and on the day when the clarification was posted by the company to see whether investors of the company were shortchanged in this process of an alleged wrongful disclosure. We've written to Ola Electric on this particular query. A response from the company still remains awaited, though.
All right, Yash, many thanks for joining us. That's the latest there as far as Ola Electric is concerned. On to earnings now. Tata Group's retail unit Trent reported Q4 numbers ahead of estimates. Shares rallying in trade after revenue grew by nearly 29%. EBITDA was up more than 37%. Margins expanded by 100 basis points annually, hitting 16%. Trent has also recommended a dividend of 5 rupees a share. Adani Group's Ambuja Cement reported a 55% drop in Q4 profits when compared sequentially. Revenue was up 6% at nearly 10,000 crore rupees. Margins were almost at 19% with an expansion of 50 basis points. Ambuja's numbers are not comparable year on year after the mergers of Sanghi and Penna Cements were completed in December of last year. Max Healthcare Managing Director Abhay Soy has said that the current version of the government's flagship health insurance scheme, the Ayushman Bharat, is not viable for private hospitals. Speaking to CNBC-TV18, Soy also said that huge operational expenses make it difficult for private hospitals to participate in such schemes. Take a look.
Private hospitals, particularly in the larger cities, the cost of, in metros, the cost of, manpower, our cost of fuel, our cost of land resources, and so on and so forth, are significantly higher than non-metro cities. So it's not necessarily viable for players like us to sort of participate in Ayushman Bharat from that standpoint. But I think, we have been working with the government how to sort of come up with more features in the policy, perhaps, which would be, then we will be able to accommodate those.
All right, that is Abhay Soy there of Max Healthcare. It's been a week since the terror attack in Jammu and Kashmir's Pahalgam claimed the lives of 26 civilians. Geopolitical tensions between India and Pakistan on the rise. Pakistan has violated ceasefire along the line of control in Jammu and Kashmir for the 5th day. The Indian Army responded in a measured and effective manner to the provocation near Kupwara and Baramulla districts. Reports suggest that intense counter-terror operations are underway in Jammu and Kashmir in the aftermath of the attack. The perpetrators of the attack are still on the run. November. Preliminary investigations identified two of the attackers as Pakistani nationals. Prime Minister Modi will chair a crucial meeting of the Cabinet Committee on Security tomorrow to review the security preparations. This will be the second such meeting since the attack. Congress leaders Rahul Gandhi and Mallikarjun Kharge have written to Prime Minister Modi seeking a special session of both houses of parliament in the wake of the terror attack. The RJD and the CPI have also made similar requests. Meanwhile, India has called out Pakistan as a rogue state fueling global terrorism at the UN. This after Pakistani Defence Minister Khwaja Asif admitted in a television interview that the country trained and funded terrorist organisations. In a separate interview, Asif claimed that a military incursion by India appeared imminent.
This forum to indulge in propaganda and make baseless allegations against India. The whole world has heard Pakistan's Defence Minister Khwaja Asif admitting and confessing Pakistan's history of supporting, training and funding terrorist organizations in a recent television interview. This open confession surprises no one and exposes Pakistan as a rogue state fueling global terrorism and destabilizing the region. The world can no longer turn a blind eye.
And 48 tourist destinations have been shut across Jammu and Kashmir to tighten security. Shivani standing by with the details. Shivani, take us through that.
Well, yes. Now, security concerns are casting shadow over Kashmir's tourism season this time as well. Now, sources have confirmed to CNBC-TV18 that the government has shut down 48 of the 87 officially recognized tourist destinations across the valley. Now, this is a significant move. Remember that it comes amid heightened security operations following the recent terror attack in Pahalgam. Popular destinations like Usmarg, Doodh Patri, Harbal, Sinthan Top and Verinag Garden, all of which usually see very high footfall in the summer season, are now completely off limits for tourists. Even iconic locations like Astanmarg and part of Dachigam National Park have been partially shut down. Official sources say that this is a temporary and precautionary step as forces continue to conduct searches and maintain tight security across vulnerable zones. Now, security has been beefed up around the remaining open destinations, but it remains unclear when normal tourist activity will resume across the affected sites. Back to you.
Shivani, many thanks. Meanwhile, India is considering curbs on the exports of electronics and e-commerce goods to Pakistan. We learned from sources that the government is preparing for the possibility of Pakistan shutting down the air cargo corridor. Abhimanyu standing by with more. Abhimanyu, what are you picking up? What could be the backup plan? And what further curbs could India impose on exports to Pakistan?
Sources have indicated that after Indus water, Indian electronics and e-commerce goods may face curbs for Pakistan because after passenger traffic, there is a likelihood that air cargo route over Pakistan may get severely impacted. Sources have indicated that the government is collating data from the Customs Department and several other departments to understand the logistics cost for exporters in case of any further disruptions. Also, plans are underway to assess the impact of trade to UAE and Europe as part of multifaceted preparations for a possible disruption which may happen for trade. Also, sources explained that direct trade between India and Pakistan is minuscule as most Indian goods are re-exported via third countries to Pakistan, and the third countries include nations like the UAE, Sri Lanka and Singapore, and it's primarily items like gold, gems and jewelry, electronics and e-commerce goods which are re-exported to Pakistan via these countries. Now, as per GTRI, Indian goods worth over $10 billion per year reach Pakistan from these third countries, which may face fresh curbs based on the assessment which is underway. It remains to be seen what happens with respect to the assessment and based on the stakeholder consultation, based on the information which reaches the government from various departments, any further action would be initiated.
Abhimanyu, many thanks. In global earnings, Germany's largest lender, Deutsche Bank, posted higher than expected profits in the first quarter on robust investment banking performance. However, the bank upped its credit provisions as Europe's economy navigates turbulence amidst Trump's tariffs. Net profit up 39% on a yearly basis, revenue up 10%. Meanwhile, Europe's largest lender also beat estimates in Q1. However, on a yearly basis, profit after tax fell 25%, while revenue fell 15%. The bank warned that there could be a fallout in loan demand due to Trump's global trade war. The bank also announced a share buyback of up to $3 billion, which it intends to complete before 2025 interim results are announced. Automaker General Motors ahead of expectations in Q1. The company is reassessing its 2025 financial guidance and suspending any additional buybacks amidst uncertainties. Due to Trump's tariffs, the firm's revenues have come in at $44 billion, up 2.3% compared to last year. We will head to a break, but up next, the Supreme Court asks what is wrong if the government chooses to use a spyware in the Pegasus matter. Such national security cannot be compromised. That and more when we return. Well, the big international story, Mark Carney's Liberal Party has won the Canadian elections. This marks a notable turnaround for the centre-left party. However, the Liberals have fallen short of securing a majority. According to preliminary results, the party was leading in at least 164 electoral districts, just 8 seats shy of the 172 required for a majority. In his victory speech, Carney took a tough stance against Washington, accusing President Trump of trying to break the country apart.
America wants our land, our resources, our water, our country. Never. But these are not idle threats. President Trump is trying to break us so that America can own us. That will never, ever happen.
Carney era there in Canada, and it starts now. On to court action back home. The Supreme Court has asked what's wrong with the government using spyware against anti-national elements. The court's observations came while it was hearing a petition seeking the release of the 2022 expert panel report on the use of the Pegasus spyware. The top court also said the spyware usage can be examined if it targeted civil society members. Now, Ashmit is standing by to take us through the arguments in court. Ashmit.
Well, interesting observations falling from the apex court, the Supreme Court expressing its prima facie view that what's wrong if the government is indeed using spyware, that the only question is who they're using it on, and then supplementing that by saying that if there is a case that is made out that members of civil society are being targeted, that is something that the apex court is willing to look at. But at a broader level, what the Supreme Court, the impression that it's trying to give right now is that there can be no case of compromising national security, especially given the sensitive times that we are in. Now, all of this began when the petitioners made a pitch before the highest court of the country for essentially disclosure of the expert committee findings that were placed in a sealed cover in 2022. Since then, there's been no disclosure of the findings of what really the expert committee had discovered when it took on the devices to investigate whether or not Pegasus had been used. In fact, what we do know, what the small detail that was made public, is that there were devices that were found to have malwares, but it could not be determined whether or not it was Pegasus. It is in this context that the petitioners made a pitch by citing a US court judgment of 2024, saying that this is new evidence. It wasn't available before the expert committee, wasn't available before the Supreme Court, that this judgment very clearly says that it has upheld WhatsApp's allegations against NSO, the maker of Pegasus, for using WhatsApp servers for intercepting as many as 1,400 devices. This, the petitioner says, damning evidence of even Indian devices having been infected, and therefore is seeking a further hearing in this matter, seeking for disclosure of those findings. The centre's position, however, is quite clear. The centre is placing national security on a pedestal and saying that there can be no case of compromising national security and sovereignty. Therefore, no case is made out. However, the Supreme Court said it is willing to think about this and has posted the matter for further hearing on July 30th.
All right, we look forward to that. Thanks very much, Ashmit. Now, the International Air Travel Association, IATA, is, and I quote, surprised and deeply disappointed, end of quote, after the Mumbai airport informed cargo flight operators about discontinuing flights and potential withdrawal of slots from next season. Now, cargo operators have been protesting this proposed shift to the new airport in Navi Mumbai, which is set to be operationalized this year. Madiha is standing by with the details. Madiha, take us through IATA's statement and its objections on the likely change as far as cargo flight operations are concerned.
Well, it has been a very contentious issue. We know that Navi Mumbai International Airport is gearing up to start operations in the next few months. There's still no clarity on how many flights will be shifted to this new airport and whether all airlines, all operators are willing to move part of their operations there. Remember, both these airports are owned by one entity, the Adani Group. Apart from pure cargo players, several big players including Lufthansa, Emirates, Singapore Airlines and Cathay Pacific operate freighter flights to Mumbai. What IATA is concerned about is whether the airport operator is using this situation by suspending cargo flights and withdrawing the slots to pressure airlines to move their operations to their new airport, which is in Navi Mumbai. And if that is the case, then IATA warns that this is an example of airport capacity gaming, which will harm aviation throughout India and beyond. Now, we had also reported about Adani Group's plans to build taxiways and parking slots at the time when Mumbai Airport had submitted the tariff hike proposal to AERA. So it has been their plan to carry out infrastructure work at the airport. But the panic and concern in the cargo airlines community started when Mumbai Airport informed the operators that they will suspend cargo flight operations at the airport from 16th August 2025, which is just 3 months from now. And the reason for this could also be valid, the concern for this could also be valid because when you're carrying cargo, you have a complete logistics ecosystem that's taking care of moving shipments out of the terminal to a warehouse and then for distribution. And there are shippers and buyers that are around the vicinity of the airport who may not want to travel to Navi Mumbai. So it could not only impact these airlines, but also disrupt the supply of goods in the city. That's the fear, and IATA says that such decisions of reducing capacity cannot be taken unilaterally and have to be done after consultation and advance notice to stakeholders. IATA claims that Mumbai Airport has failed to adhere to Civil Aviation Ministry's guidelines for slot allocation, including its direction to preserve historic rights for future seasons. IATA has urged the airport operator to immediately withdraw these capacity cuts and instead urgently engage with the airline industry in a meaningful consultation to minimize disruptions to airline operations, inconvenience to passengers and loss of air connectivity for Mumbai. IATA says there have been zero details on how Mumbai Airport will manage the capacity reduction and mitigate the impact. So this is what we have so far.
All right, Madhya, appreciate you joining us. And with that, it is time for us to wrap up this edition of Business 360. The news will continue right here on CNBC-TV18. Do stay tuned. We're back in a minute with more.